Cooper asks, "Come on, haven't you had enough?" The nerd replied, "A nerd's work is never done." Cooper said, "Well, that's just a stupid line." The nerd said, "I only said it for the trailer." Recognize this quotes movie? Stay tuned to find out, or check out the title of this episode of Talking Pictures Trivia.
Welcome to Talking Pictures Trivia, the podcast in which a group of geographically challenged friends explore movies through trivia as an excuse to keep their friendships alive. I'm one of these friends and today's host, Nick, and with me is...
Tom,
KJ,
and Brian.
Today we're departing from our regularly scheduled programming to deliver you a rapid-fire format borrowed from our Talking TV Trivia subseries. We'll start with 4 essential trivia questions. The first question is worth 1 point, and each question after that is worth 1 more point. Then we'll follow it up with a theme discussion, this week being YouTube to the silver screen. Tom, tell us about today's movie.
logging into YouTube in 2006, we would have had to choose between The Face of YouTube, Floundering Founders, OK Stop, and the precursor to today's movie, The Angry Nintendo Nerds Castlevania 2 episode. Walking up to the Phoenixville Theater in Pennsylvania on August 2nd in 2014, you would have had seen today's movie, Angry Video Game Nerd, the movie. KJ will be our questionnaire today. KJ, what is Angry Video Game Nerd, the movie, all about?
In the Angry Video Game Nerd, the movie, we follow James Rolfe character called the Nerd through an adventure to discover exactly what happened to the E.T. cartridges rumored to have been dumped into a landfill in Nevada. But the focus of today's episode will be the adventure of James Rolfe himself, from YouTube to the silver screen. James Rolfe has an excellent YouTube series called The Angry Video Game Nerd, which started with an upload in 2006. In a lot of ways, James Rolfe is a pioneer of what became known as influencers without being an influencer himself. His success led him to kickstart his own movie before Kickstarter was popular, and the result is one of the most fun movies ever put to film. It's time for Question 1. In the flashback with the young nerd, what did the young nerd receive for Christmas?
Locked in.
Locked in.
All right, Nick, what do you have?
E.T.
Tom?
I had E.T. the game.
Brian?
Triple E, Triple T, E.T.
Points for everybody.
That was a tough one. Trademark free E.T.
It's time for Question 2. This 2600 ET game is actually a map of what?
Locked in.
Locked in.
Locked in. Oh, these are some softballs.
Some softballs. All right, everybody at the same time.
Area 51.
Area 51.
51.
And where is that?
Groom Lake, Nevada.
Nevada, yeah.
That's what I thought, Nevada.
Between Area 50 and Area 52? It's time for Question 3. Why does Mandy say they are going to make E.T. 2 bad?
Locked in.
And this is a specific quote from the movie.
Oh, quote.
So in the pitch meeting, Mr. Cockburn asks, "Why would we do this?" And she has a real quick quip almost. That is exactly why they're going to do this.
I'm going to lock in. Yeah.
Locked in the best I can.
Yeah, I'm going to, sure, lock in.
Tom, what do you have?
It's more of a paraphrase, but it's because no one likes good games anymore.
Brian?
Let's start with it's out of the box marketing. People think good games or bad games are good, and they'll end up cutting their expenses by half and doubling their profits.
Nick, what do you have?
Bad is good.
Points are going to Brian. She specifically says it'll be half the cost and double the profits. It's time for Question 4. What is the name of the god that lives under Mount Fuji?
Locked in.
Locked in.
Sure, I'll lock in.
Tom, what do you have?
The Great Muzumbi?
Nick?
I'm going with Lavusha.
Brian?
Darth Mothis or something close to that.
Points to Brian.
What
That's
was
Mortis?
it?
That's Mortis? That's Mortis?
Mortis.
That's Mortis.
With the-
It's something intentional that you can't really say.
I
Yeah.
had no
See,
idea. You just got to watch to make sure he doesn't move that antenna, right? The
Mhm.
Yeah.
dish,
Yeah.
One
Psych.
time around.
the satellite dish. So Brian swept that?
Think
Sweet.
so.
Yep,
Yeah,
100%.
man.
Watched it a couple times over the last few
Yeah, I actually looked up the death mothsis, but because the spelling is impronounceable, I couldn't remember it. So there you
It was
go.
just too much. It was just not
Yeah.
something you could easily do. So I just moved on.
Yeah, it's spelled Mwauthzyx.
Mothix. And all the characters say it slightly differently too, which I think is just part of the joke.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that actually
Um,
some sort of character, or is that just made up for this movie? Did he like?
I'm sure it's made up.
Yeah, I'm
It's
pretty
not
sure,
like a
yeah.
cartoon or a comic or anime or whatever.
I don't. This sounds like James Rolfe and Matt Matei. Like, what's his name? Death Mothic? Like joking around that they can't say it and making it.
Right.
Yeah. But congrats to Brian, our winner. Now we'll be diving into our topic of the week: YouTube to silver screen. Right after this break. Join another Talking Studios production, Limited Lexicon, where we play through text-based adventure games. Text-based adventure games were computer games from before computers had graphics. The game uses text to describe a scene, and the player types back how they want to interact with the game. I'll read the text from the computer, and my co-host will feed me commands. This season, we're playing through The Hobbit from 1982 on the ZX Spectrum. Here's a quick sample.
I thought a lot about our first command, and I think it should be no print because we don't want to print things as we're going along.
I think by default, it's not going to print. And even if I did type print, where is it going to print to? 1982?
I would imagine if we go west, we're going to be south of the troll, right? Just south of the troll
Yeah,
land.
let's try it.
You go west. The trolls clearing. The visible.
Oh, we died.
Oh.
All
All
right.
The troll saw us and killed us.
So I think we have to say the answer to the riddle then.
The answer is dark.
Say dark, I think.
Talk to what?
Goal.
Gollum.
Say Gollum dark.
You talk to Gollum. Thorin says, hurry up.
And we died.
And we died.
So we went northeast last time. So let's go southwest.
You go southwest. Visible exits are north, northwest. You see the valuable golden ring.
Oh.
We're ending it here.
Wow.
That's
Wait.
perfect. That's
Alright.
perfect.
Limited Lexicon, coming to your podcatcher and YouTube in late 2022 by Talking Studios. And we're back. So guys, today I really wanted to discuss the idea of starting on YouTube and going to the silver screen, right? In the past, maybe you could start on PBS. Is that the equivalent of what YouTube is today? And then get to the silver screen, or like Wayne's World on SNL to the silver screen? Not the same, right? So I really think it's a cool thing that happened, and I don't know how often it still happens, if it's going to happen again. So what were your guys' experience with the nerd on YouTube, with the movie?
I'm just thinking about what you said about SNL. I still think that might be too big of a platform or a launching off point because so many people, but I'm just thinking back in the earlier days of SNL, maybe it was like that, like before our time, like the people we know
I'm sure more people have watched these angry video game nerd things than watch SNL currents.
Well, that's why I'm going back in time. I'm going
One
back in
year
time.
for the last 20
Yeah.
years.
When we grew
Yeah.
up, though, in our
I-
prime years, like I guess high school and college, it still was very popular.
Yeah, I have
Not to date myself
seen
here, but
SNL. I willingly in maybe a decade. The only time I've walked into rooms when it's been on. That's the closest I've been.
those actors still get deals, though. There are movies that come out, and those
No,
are people
yeah, yeah.
from SNL.
Yeah, it's just YouTube is so much, bigger than
Oh yeah,
I think network television. We don't realize it because it's also still clunky. Like,
Well,
even though
quantity too. There's
there's
quality buried, but
yeah, it's just so it's so easy to access, and there's so much that can suit your particular niche that yeah, there's so many videos that are, hundreds of millions of views.
And maybe this is a silly question and is going to prove your point, Tom, but do we know anybody else that started as either an influencer or on YouTube or on TikTok? I don't know. And then ended up on the silver screen?
Yeah, they have another one coming out. It's the face in a shell thing. It's a YouTube thing where it's like a eye in a shell, or I don't remember the name of it, but it has a pretty what looks like to be a normally budgeted film um, that is based upon this series.
that's still a very small percentage of content creators though. Even if there was a dozen we missed, that's still based on the amount of people out there creating content.
Oh yeah,
A very small fraction.
It's still a small thing, but in terms of entertainment, YouTube is there a network show that comes even close to the, I don't know, top 30 YouTube channels?
Well, so bringing it back to James Rolfe, how do we think he did translating his show into a movie?
He was pretty consistent with the character he developed. I mean, granted, there's only so much depth, right? In an angry video game nerd.
It's also about the channel, right? So it's about, I said this in my remarks last week, but it's about fandom. And he is gone from being a fan, albeit a belligerent run of this type of thing, to being someone who has fans, right? And he's become sort of a node for this sort of cultural experience of reliving video games, of old video games, of being a nerd for old video games. I think the movie does that, and as a consequence, it's also doing something different from the channel. The channel is about that experience. This is about reflections on that experience, right? There's sort of another layer to it.
This was clearly a movie for the fans, and if anyone else watched it on top of it, that was even gravy. At least that's my opinion here. Like, it was crowdsourced from fans. Fans participated in it, like I said last week. Clips were directly of fans or other related channels that had been in that universe at that time. So I don't think I've ever seen anything else that was a gift to their fans more than this. I know that's kind of a bold statement, but it really felt that way, especially with the budget. I mean, what, a few $100,000, something like that? Like, it's crazy that they were even be able to pull it off.
The other thing that I was thinking about is, how many of these YouTube creators these days have the background and I guess the pedigree that, well, not pedigree, but that James Rolfe has. He's gone to film school. He's major, and he's been doing this since he was a child. I remember him talking about that in some of his way early videos. So, with the fact that there's probably not a whole lot of creators out there that have that drive and that experience for, close to 30 odd years. Maybe that's why we don't see as many jumping over as you do.
Yeah, I didn't think of that at all, right? Most influencers, they're not interested in the silver screen.
Take a couple of people and
now you just turn the camera on. It's not the same. Back when he was doing it was tape. I mean, I'm not talking about angry video game nerd. I'm saying when he grew up and played around with that stuff. The other thing is we're talking like he got optioned. He didn't get optioned. He said, "I'm going to make this film. Me and my buddy are going to write it. We're going to try to get some money together to put it," and he did it. So that's also another thing. It's not like a studio came in and said, "Your YouTube channel is great. Here's a ton of money and a budget,"
Run with it.
He decided that this is something that's important to me and I want to do.
In some ways, it's kind of cooler than if a studio showed up. And
it's better. That's why I said this is like a love letter to his fans.
And he had all the artistic freedom. I mean, nobody was telling him what to do. It's all up to him.
I remember when he announced it, and it was kind of confusing. He's like, "Hey, I got these episodes, and here's a script that we wrote a while back, and we're trying to crowdsource the money." And everyone was like, "What? How can you possibly turn this show into a movie?" And what he said was, "Think Wayne's World. Like, we pull the camera back, and it is a show that's being made by characters, and now we're going to follow the characters around." And I thought that worked really well. That was a great genre to jump into for the movie.
That makes sense. Like, I didn't know this background, and you brought up Wayne's World before too, but I get it. That does make sense to me. If that was kind of the guide that they were having when developing the script and how the movie would play out.
The other funny thing he said was he had this script and it was about ET, and he reached out to Rick Warshaw, who was the guy who created the game, and he didn't have any clout or whatever at that point, but he said Rick messaged him back and said this is the best version of what happened to the games that went into the landfill. Period. Like this is the greatest. So that's why he was on board for the movie.
Well, I wanted to ask Brian about, what did you think about the film compared to the channel, right? Because I actually enjoy his YouTube channel. I didn't know about it until KJ suggested this movie. I
wow.
actually, it grew. Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah.
I am not a gamer.
I binged that thing back in the day.
Back in the day,
Once
I have a
found out
number of
about it.
episodes I saved down from, to that when I started looking at them in 2009, 10, 11. It was all the games that, that we played back in the day that frustrated that heck out of us. The one that really jumps out, Nick, I don't know if it's the same for you, is Top Gun. One.
Oh, we had a Top Gun
movie,
episode, and I mentioned my
down,
vivid memory was not even about the movie. It was about trying to land or fly that darn plane.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. I think maybe out of all the times I played that game, I never got past the second level.
Because you crash.
You crash. And I might have landed once.
You crash.
So it really hit home. And some of those other games that there were a handful that he reviewed that I never played, but just because you like the way that he presents, you dig his sense of humor and the darkness of what he's doing there. You just if you're the right person, you can watch any one of those, even if it had nothing to do or a system that you never played, and really get a good time out of it. I look very forward to having my kids watch these things, even though they're probably not going to want to watch them, at some point. Not yet, even though their vocabulary, well, my oldest's vocabulary is probably caught up to the nerd, fortunately. But it was a really good series. I'm glad he's still continuing it. It's a little bit different now, with the way that he's reviewing some of his newer, or he's making some of his newer shorts, but it's something that can't be replicated by a lot of people going forward.
What's great about the world we live in now when it comes to niche markets, you don't have to appease everyone in the world. You just need to gather a specific audience that has that interest, which is absolutely amazing. And that's why YouTube can capture so many different audiences that network TV can't, because they need to make it, for lack of a better term, generic enough to get a large base, but really not necessarily appeal to people who have deep interest in specific segments or topics.
Yeah, we talked a little about this on the Videodrome episode, sort of the global village. And we've mentioned this a few times, but I think KJ had that kind of update to the Marshall McLuhan concept of the global village, where there's kind of one culture, a unique culture, because of how media can be spread. And what YouTube has taught us is that there is no real global village. There might be a global medium like YouTube, but people are going to really be quite diverse in what they find on there. Like, Brian, it shocks me that you've been watching this since 2009. I've not heard of this until what, whenever KJ suggested this a few weeks ago. So I think, speaking to what you're saying, Nick, about the sort of what YouTube does is it rids us of the generic, right? Everything is specific, everything is particular. And it's interesting, when people first started talking about YouTube, it was the question was, well, who's going to make all this stuff, right? It's just going to require them hiring so many people to make. And it turns out, no, we will, right? The entertainment will emerge from us, and we'll just kind of do it. And that's kind of happening with movies too, with these kind of very low budget films that just get streamed on Amazon for 15 cents or whatever. And I think Rolfe is also seeming to work in that. I don't want to call it a tradition. It seems to be if it is a tradition, it's a rather new one.
Yeah, a future tradition.
A future tradition. Thank you. It's like new classic, right? But a future tradition, where this movie is, again, for particular people, not only particular gamers, but people who like his channel, like you were saying, Nick. I have to say, I've said this before. I don't really have ever played video games. I think I used to play the Sierra games, and that once GoldenEye came out, I was done. I couldn't stand GoldenEye, and I felt like this is just an indicator that this kind of celebration, this kind of fun is not for me.
That's just because you played with KJ and he'd master every game.
Yeah, I couldn't even see what screen I was on. Never mind. Or I'd drop a grenade on my feet. That I would get lost and drop a grenade on my feet, and that would be the whole experience. But I find him really charming, actually. Rolfe, I found him really charming. I enjoy the YouTube channel despite not having any familiarity, not even having heard of some of these systems. It's just very funny to see how bad these games are, and he does, like you're saying, Brian, he articulates well what's so damn stupid about each one of these games, right? And
we
you
all
can
thought
see,
it. We all thought it, but he just put it into words 25
yeah,
later.
yeah, and it's edited
on YouTube.
well together too, to see the like how freaking idiotic so much of this is. um I will say I found the movie less funny. I think the stuff with the military, like the guy who gets his arms chopped off and Sergeant Butters, uh, all that guy, was kind of eager to get past.
I didn't want to bring it up too much. I wanted to focus more on the positive, but I will say Tom was talking about certain dialogue. There were some cringy jokes that didn't land. I will say that.
Yeah.
Like there was a fair amount of them,
Yeah.
but they got to pass somehow. Like it just, I'm like, I'm along for the ride.
Yeah, it either didn't age well, which doesn't make that much sense because it's pretty new, or everybody's like, all right, when they were in middle school, they kind of wrote this script and then didn't update
Yeah, that's exactly. It felt like a very youthful script. I don't know how else to put it.
It was a boys script. That's a young boys
exactly.
script. Yeah.
What was it? Nerds Before Birds.
Yeah,
Which
which I kind of liked. I think the one that was like kind of an eye roll was like making jokes about melons, like the melon as metaphor for breast thing, which, like, my God,
that's what that meant.
Yeah. Yeah, like I think that wasn't funny by the time I was 9, and never mind here, but whatever, man. Like there was a decent amount of it that didn't.
Although there was some stupid things that I did enjoy, where they would just like drive through like random boxes. I got these boxes get here. Like it was stupid, it was shtick, but
yeah, it's like all the chase scenes.
I get what they were doing with the glass pane and all. It was just the same thing. Like they just thought that was a good idea when they were younger and kept it in,
Yeah, I was thinking maybe if that glass pane scene had anything to do if you guys have played Back to the Future. Because as you're skating, they have the guy with the glass pane.
That goes beyond then. That's like an old trope. I don't even know where. Yes.
No,
like
the
under
glass
a piano.
Oh yeah,
like,
the glass pane thing goes back to the silent era. But like,
yeah,
was there a
like
glass
old
pane thing in one of the video games he reviews?
Oh, I think I'm almost positive he reviewed back some point the Back to the Future, because that was another one of those games that was kind of it was fun. I have it in the box in the back in the closet behind my left shoulder, but there was a really annoying character in that first level that was carrying the glass back and forth. So I thought maybe that was something that he threw in there to give a shout out.
Quite possible.
That character.
Yeah, I actually felt like Rolfe a little bit commenting on the movie as the movie was going on. But I can appreciate the ardor like you guys have for it. For this kind of double reflection, right? It's a reflection on the nostalgic games and then a reflection on this YouTube experience of people sharing in reflections on nostalgic games. And that kind of warms my heart.
Oh.
What did you think, Brian? How did you think it compared to the channel itself?
The channel itself, I think it's a pretty.
Or the movie. How do you think the movie compared to the channel?
The movie was definitely, it was a departure from what his normal shtick is on the shows. It was, because each one of those episodes is very, there's some recurring characters throughout the years there, but each one of them is a finite thought. It's a Ghostbusters, it's Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. It's, and you know exactly what you're getting, what that 12 to 15 minutes or whatever it would be is going to be focused on. So very different from what we were used to for the couple of us that had watched these over the years. But I would love to. I look forward to continue watching. This actually kind of brought it back to the present. If you looked at my subscription list on YouTube, it's, I don't have a village, Tom. I am somewhere out, on the fringes of society, with all the kind of different, content that I will flip through, when I have the kids sleeping at night, and I'm just looking to see what's going on there. History and music critiques. I watched a couple guys that
eclectic mix.
Yes,
there's a very
yes,
eclectic
yeah.
mix,
Very
from
eclectic
metal
mixes.
reviews to history and battles from BC era kind of deal. But
Well, no, it's interesting. It's you were kind of an early adopter of Rolfe's channel, which became like one of the biggest, if not the biggest channel. And now you're like outside of like the global community. You've moved to like the specific or the particular, which is cool. That seems to be like how YouTube works. That's how my YouTube viewing is also. It's my particular habits or interests are always reflected in my YouTube channel, which is a really cool mix. YouTube allows us to do this, a really cool mix of the kind of the bigger channels, which usually have these like great experts on them, and then these like little nerd channels, right? And it's always a little nerd channel where it's the person who, yeah, there you go. It's the person who isn't like got the PhD or the MD, but it's the guy or gal who's just really invested in this little thing that most people might think is stupid, but there's just like there's love through anger at whatever it is. It's just that kind of passion, and YouTube's great for that. YouTube's great for that kind of mix of expertise and amorous.
When it comes down to it, I don't consume all that much television. We cut the cord a couple of years ago. And pretty much the only entertainment I watch is on YouTube at night or during the day, during lunch, if I want to just kind of go down to my subscriptions page and see what was just posted or published. That's where I get my entertainment from. So YouTube almost 100% of what I watch these days.
Yeah, me too, actually.
Good person to have on the show for both of you. I do actually watch a fair amount. I think KJ, you may be the one who watches YouTube the least on a regular basis.
Yeah, no, I'm not a YouTube guy.
Yeah, I kind of have, I think what you're speaking about, Brian, I think I have your experience. You're talking about seeing battles from the BC era and whatnot and learning about them. Like YouTube really is kind of education fun type thing, which sounds 100%. Lame.
Doesn't dull you. It takes you. I
have some of those mixed in with just straight up hobbies too. So like there's educational stuff that I listen to that's science based, and then there's other things that just I'm interested in because I like certain niches. Like it's a mix.
Yeah, and my viewing is usually like 2-hour movies on YouTube, or 2 hour. They're not movies, but I the other day watched over the course of maybe several days like a 2-hour conversation on mitochondrial health, like something like that, right?
And that was just one of Tom's B-sides, the 2 hours. So YouTube for sure, but for a lot of his career, he was on a website called Screw Attack, which was owned by MTV. So I believe he had a deal with MTV to produce these episodes, which then eventually ended up on YouTube. So he was kind of doing stuff before YouTube, I don't want to say was bought by Google, but was established right before Gangnam Style, right? That's when YouTube became YouTube. So there is a path there that he took to get to be the YouTube star that he is today. And to congratulate another star that may be a YouTube star after this episode, Brian. Nicely done on your sweep. That was great.
Clean sweep too.
Clean sweep. Yeah.
This is a lot of fun.
We only got the softballs, right, Tom? I don't think we
got
any.
We got Darth
Maul.
At first, I thought he was actually giving a joke answer, like Darth Plagueis or something, like a Star Wars thing. I'm like, oh wait, no, that might actually be the answer. By the way, that creature or being or God really was just in the storyline toying with us because he could have just moved the satellite dish at any
Well, it was
time.
that one thing where it's like psych.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Little girls, the Japanese girl
Yeah.
from Tokyo.
The plot doesn't make a lick of sense.
No. I was saying it really devolved pretty quickly.
Yeah.
3 minutes out.
You can find more of our content wherever you listen to podcasts on our YouTube channel, Twitter @Talking Studios, and our website, talkingpicturestrivia.com. We're extremely grateful to all those who subscribe, like, follow, and leave a review. Did you enjoy your playthrough of ET? Let us know on Twitter, talkingpicturestrivia@gmail.com, or give us a call at 201-467-8679.
You can find me on Twitter @ThomasLehman15.
You can find me on Twitter @KJ10001000.
This was a lot of fun. It was, and thanks for bringing that this movie back to my my forefront here. It was a lot of good memories, and looking forward to watching it a couple more times over the years, no doubt.
Great.
I can also be found on Twitter @TheNicknamed. Join us next time when we discuss Kingpin from 1996. Stay tuned for our first impressions of this film.
Ding, 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 ding.
Next week, we'll be discussing Kingpin from 1996. Tom, how was your watch?
This was my first watch. I watched it yesterday in order to do our first impressions. I really do like Blues Travelers at the end of the picture. I'm glad they were there and they came in. I have enjoyed other Farley Brothers movies, and I do like Woody Harrelson in certain things. Bill Murray is I think pretty much I think the word comic or the phrase comic genius is overused, but I think Bill Murray, I'll call him an ironic genius. He is a master of irony, and his messy haired a-hole is the reason to watch this film. I will say that. It was it was a it was a long watch for me, friend.
Big Earn for the win. What are you talking about?
Yeah. It was a long watch, but Bill Murray's wig thing coming apart, his like comb over coming apart in the final contest was an absolute delight. How about you, Chris? How was your first watch?
This was probably like my 20th watch to rewatch this movie for this event. And I have to admit, it hasn't aged well. It's definitely one of those comedies from the 90s that's a little on the edgy side these days. But from a nostalgia point of view, from I like it point of view, I still really enjoy this movie. I laughed out loud at a couple of scenes once again, even though I've seen this so many times. And yes, Bill Murray is the reason to watch this, and him and his flower ball are fantastic. And I think the reason why this movie drew me in the 90s and the 2000s was because I did bowl a lot. This and The Big Lebowski were like the quintessential bowling movies of that time period. And it doesn't get much better than this. It doesn't get much better than Big Earn throwing the wig into the air. I mean, it's fantastic. What about you, Nick? What do you think?
When you were talking about your impression, I can't even say first impression, about this being one of the two big bowling movies, I think it still is one of the two big bowling movies.
Yeah, I don't think they've topped it since.
So I'm still waiting. Yes, I was a fan of bowling as well, but I have to say, I unabashedly, I still thoroughly enjoy this film. I've seen this film many times, but not recently. So that is why it was a joy to press play and watch it again. I did laugh out loud. I was watching this on a train back from Virginia, DC area, and I had my AirPods in, and I realized I was like laughing out loud. People had no idea what was going on with this cackling fool in the train there. And I know so many lines. I don't know how I know so many lines, but I almost could recite this film. It shocked me. So is it a masterpiece? No, but do I enjoy every second of it? Yes. Even the really, really corny stuff. It's just fun.
Yeah, I didn't realize how much of my like everyday kind of like vernacular, like stupid little sayings that I have came from bits and pieces of this movie. It's really, it really says something about me, I guess, how poor my sense of humor is, but it's a great film. Great film.
Yeah, I think it's because maybe Bill Murray, I was told, improvised most of his lines, that they're the ones that made me laugh. But we'll see.
Listen, sometimes we all have one foot in the frying pan and one foot in the pressure cooker, okay? I'll leave it at that. Kingpin is available on Amazon Prime Video at the time of this recording.